some thumbs up. All right. Great. Okay, well, it looks like we've got, looking for a couple more yeses and thumbs up out there. Maggie, Wendy, trying to watch the chat and both my screens. Aileen. Okay. Shati, Sarah, Megan.
My camera's freezing real quick. Hold on one sec.
Okay. It's okay. It's okay. All right. Looks like I've got just about everybody out there ready to go. Dr. Arnold, as we like to put it, we want to make sure everybody's shoes are tied before we start the race. So, all right.
I totally understand that.
With that, I'm going to hand it off to you. Thank you all for being prepared and for participating. It is so important that you are actively participating in the program and getting the most out of this. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks guys. It's so great to be able to see your smiling faces. It makes it so much more fun on my end. All right, so how many of you guys have actually taken a temperature of a food at your own house? Yeah, thumbs up, hands up, nodding. Some of you don't have your cameras on, so I don't know if you want to give me, yep, thumbs up emoji on there. Oh yeah, right. Yep, thanks Ian, Sarai, Maggie. Oh, beautiful, I love it. Excellent, I'm really excited. Oh, good, I'm like scrolling through here. Right, okay, so some haven't, some have. I'm gonna be honest, I never did until I was a health inspector, and now I think I have like 5 thermometers in my house. Anyway, I like to use these. Well, we're gonna be using this one today, and the main reason that I like this one is that it is super, super sturdy. I mean, it cannot be submerged in water, so you shouldn't be like putting in the dishwasher, that kind of thing. But it is not, it doesn't have any mercury. It's very safe. It's very reliable. And the best part about it, you don't need to replace batteries into it, and you can manually calibrate it as often as you want or need. So that's why I like these ones. So I don't know if you believe it, but everything you need to be able to calibrate this beautiful piece of technology is right here in your hand, this little yellow strap right here. So I'm going to put this up close to my camera so you can talk about, or you can see what I'm talking about when I say the calibration nut. So do you see that kind of like little wedge over there, this guy right here? That is the calibration nut. So it's kind of like a hexagonal shaped nut over there. So that's actually what you use to calibrate it. And so the way that you would actually calibrate it, so you see on your yellow thing, you have that little hole right over there, and you see these kind of like parentheses around that. That is what kind of wraps around that hexagonal nut. So you just kind of stick it all the way through, and it is a tight fit. There we go, and I heard like a little snap. So now I am completely ready to go. I have snapped in place. This is convenient because then you don't have to like, you know, because if we're at a restaurant doing stuff, you don't want to hold this and stick it in your food, right? We're trying to like not touch as many things, and you can kind of hold that. The other reason I like these is that you can use it to like rest on your glass to do it. So does anyone know why I'm using ice water? What are your thoughts?
Maybe because we already know what temperature it's going to be.
Bingo, smart cookies, I love it. So what temperature are we hoping it should be at? Don't go with Adam's hot water. Yep, I'm looking into the chat, exactly, you guys are right. So 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 degrees Celsius, you guys are right. So we know that that's what ice water should be at. Now, technically, you can also calibrate a thermometer using boiling water. However, that is very risky because nobody likes to get burned by like 140 degrees, right? So we don't want any of that. So ice water, because if it spills, you're not going to have to go to the emergency room. So that's why we always use ice water for this. So essentially what you're going to do, I have my cup of ice water right here. So it's like full to the top. and I'm like super nervous about putting it over my computer. So I'm going to shift my camera screen down a little bit. Sorry for the view. I'm on like a yoga ball for my back. So that's why I kind of look like I'm rolling all over the place. Theoretically, I shouldn't fall, but if I do, you guys will notice. So here we go. I have my water here. I know it should be at 32 degrees because it's ice water. I'm looking at my temperature right now, and it's taking the ambient temperature of my house. So right now it looks like I'm at 69. What are you guys at? What does your stuff say right now? 70, 68, 80. Ooh, hot over there, Wendy. 73, 80, 80. Perfect. So does your room feel like it should be 80 degrees? If not, then maybe we're going to have to calibrate our thermometer. So technically calibration should be done at the beginning of every day by the restaurant, as they're going to be using it. So that's, technically how it should be done. So when we're inspecting a place, we will, there's a lot of thermometers all over the place, but we'll be like, hey, pick a thermometer, get me a glass of ice and fill it with water. And then I would go and I would check. So I would go, I'd grab my thermometer, I'd look and see what the ambient temperature is in the room. And then I'd go ahead, let the water sit for maybe a minute or so, just to kind of like make sure that, the water got cold. And then you guys can do this too. I'm going to go ahead and place my thermometer in my glass of ice water. And I can like kind of rest it on the edge over there. Now, since you have ice in there, it might kind of be hard to stick it in. Not a big deal. So now we just let it stay in there for a couple minutes. It shouldn't take too long. I see mine already going down. Is your guys' going down? Yeah, does it look like it's going down? Yep. Beautiful. I love it. So again, what do we think what are we hoping to see on our thermometer? And I know those ticks are really small, and I didn't wear my glasses because nobody knows I wear glasses except for, me at night. But those ticks are real small, and I see, because I may have adjusted my thermometer. My thermometer shows that my glass of ice water is 23 degrees. Do you think that's right? Yeah, I think that's wrong too, Adam. Oh, Tessa, you got it perfect. Okay. So some of us are not getting the accurate reading that we need. So what do you think that we need to do now? Guesses? I know it's rocket science. 33, exactly, Noah, calibrate. I love it. I love these smart cookies I'm working with. Thank you, Dr. McGee. I love them. Okay, so you're right. Now we got to calibrate our thermometer. So what do you think we need to do? We already wedged our little nut inside that spot, right? So we have our hexagonal nut in there, and then we're going to, science, yeah. So now we're going to have to twist. So you're going to have to hold the thermometer with one hand and twist using the other hand. Make sure you try to, it's easier to keep it in the water while you twist it so you can keep an accurate measurement. If you need to take it out of the water, you can do that, but it might take a little bit longer to properly calibrate. Please be careful with your computers, because the last thing you want is ice, like water, any kind of liquid all over your computers. So I'm also going to be kind of careful as well, but I'm slowly twisting that little hexagonal nut all the way. So I made it to 32. So now, according to my great eyesight, I see 32 degrees on my calibrator, on my thermometer. Now, why is it important that I trust what my thermometer tells me? Why would this be important? Other than now you guys get a nice glass of ice water after this.
If you're using it to like measure the temperature of a meat, you want to know that it's accurate, and so you can test to see if it's spoiled or not.
Beautiful. I love it. Brilliant. Exactly what Michaela said. You need to learn how to trust your materials, right? This is how we trust our science. So we know that calibration is accurate. We just tested it in the ice water. And so now we can go forward testing our, food products that we have with our properly calibrated thermometers. So we're hoping that when we get to the meats and stuff, we're going to have, ground beef at 165 and above, chicken at 165 and above, steaks at 145 and above, that kind of stuff. So this is why we want to make sure that these are properly calibrated. Now, sometimes some restaurants have, the little like zap guns that can take instant temperatures, which is fine, but those actually need to be calibrated too. And the way that those are calibrated essentially in the same way. We know how cold the ice needs to be, and you just point it at the ice water and zap it. So that's how we would be able to take temperatures in fridges, walk-in fridges, that kind of stuff. I mean, you could take that and go stand in the fridge and, for a few minutes until it gets a accurate reading, but that's kind of cold. Those are kind of cold in there, those walk-ins, and same with the freezers, but that's how we do it. So we would kind of like zap and kind of take the ambient temperature of that. So now that our stuff is fully calibrated, technically you want to do this at least at the beginning of every day. Yes, Adam, now you can use your calibrated thermometer to check your roasted chicken dinners. I love it. I hope I get an email letting me know what your temperatures are. So you guys are now completely fully versed in accurately reading temperatures. Mine is, there we go. Should be this way. So as my hand is shaky, I don't know why. I had coffee, I promise. Maybe that's it. But anyway, so yeah, so that's why we do our stuff. We want to make sure that we can trust our materials. Now, in the bigger picture, in terms of science and calibrating, and trusting our equipment, all the equipment that is used, in scientific processes. And like, for example, when my PhD was compounds and plants. So I ran a lot of stuff through equipment and machines. I had to make sure literally every time I ran samples that my machine was calibrated. So I had a set of what's called standards that I knew what the concentration was of various compounds and chemicals in those standards, and I would test the machine. Not only would I test it before I ran it, I even had it in a couple spots in between my samples to make sure that the calibration, that the machine was still reading the way it should, because I don't want to get a false positive, because that's going to make me think, oh, things are great, I don't need to worry about this, when in actuality they're not. So I always would have to run a bunch of standards, like I said, even in between my samples, to make sure that we are still properly calibrated. And that's how they do a lot of the science that is going on. There's always internal QA QC calibration stuff. So places even send out stuff to third parties to make sure that the third parties are getting the correct readings as well as they're getting on their equipment that they have in-house. So yeah, so calibration is important for all science tools. So this thermometer happens to be an easy one for food safety, and that's why we do it, but it's really important to be able to read these and to be able to run these tests. So I hope you guys are going to be going forward and making sure that your food is to proper temperature before you eat it. Sometimes I get a question and people are asking, if it's calibrated once, why do I need to recalibrate it? And to be honest, generally, I would say 99% of the time, it's going to be fine. But you know how these things are, these like little thermometers, they drop on the ground, maybe they get shuffled around in the drawer that they live in. I don't know, maybe you just like when you're pulling it out, you accidentally twist it a little bit, a couple degrees, so slowly, regular use and touch and movement of it will kind of get it out of proper calibration range, which is why we always calibrate before we start to make sure that we're still at the acceptable temperature for our stuff. So that's why we always kind of want to make sure that we start the day with that in food safety, in restaurant inspections. So, and to be honest, with my thermometer that I had, I used like a Zap thermometer or digital read one. And I would do it with ice water, and I would actually do it at the restaurants. So they would see me calibrate it before I inspected, because you got to lead by doing, right? So this is what I did, because I can't expect them to just trust me that I did it. I want them to see that it's accurate and that it works and that I did it. So tell me, what did you guys think? Some of you that had to actually calibrate yours, was it hard to move that calibration nut? Yes or no? There's no right answer. I was just curious. Yes. No. Yes. Yep. So some of you said yes, some of you said no. It really kind of depends on how tight that one, piece of it kept slipping. Oh, Luciana, you're still working on calibrating. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, so it can kind of keep slipping. If you don't get like if you don't get that pop inside there, it's going to be a little bit harder to calibrate, but it is kind of tight. You do need to put a little bit of elbow grease in there to get it to move. And that is because if it's too loose, then it's not going to be able to keep that calibration. You're going to have to keep constantly recalibrating, because if it's that loose, it's not going to hold things in place. I never would have thought that I'd be calibrating a thermometer and ice water on Zoom.
Miss, I had a question. I didn't
Yes.
get to say it, but have you ever gone to to a place where they're selling like illegal meats, like from something they shouldn't be?
Yes. So that is one that other than the I told you about the Dotson in the freezer one before the break. So it was a skin Dotson that was being used as pork. And excuse me. And then there was in the back of a food truck, unidentified meat. So, since we weren't able to know exactly what it was, not being properly refrigerated and stored, also caused, is another example of that. And also I wanted to say, oh, sorry, Belen, you had a question. I see that, and I'll continue my story later. Belen, what's your question?
My question was, with your job, like how much paperwork comes with it? Because I'm sure you write your data down. And then if you were like to, for example, I don't know if you have an office or something, if you were like to go into the office, what does your paperwork look like? And is it a lot, or do you actually hand it off to someone else?
That is a really great question, and it's a lot of paperwork, and we do not hand it off to anybody else. So, while in my time there, we started first with paper inspection. So everything that came up, I would have to do it via handwritten notes. So Sacramento County always gave us these like super fancy ergonomic pens. So that way we wouldn't have, weird calluses on our hands or anything. So I still have my like super fancy, like $150 pen or something, not a fountain pen, but like super padded. So that way I wouldn't have pain while writing. However, that slowly transitioned out to an electronic stuff with computers. Now, some of the issues with that though, is that there's not always internet at all the restaurants that we go to for me to like submit stuff or, send it to the printer. So in those cases, we always had paper backup, and then we would still do it paper wise. But then when I got back to the office, I would have to do it electronically. So I would have kind of like, the carbon copy paper where I keep one copy, they keep one copy on file, and then I go back to the office, still keep the carbon copy, and then input it onto the computer. So that was kind of a, time consuming, but it is what it is, because not everybody has internet, they don't have to have internet at the restaurant. So that's how that works out. So good question. I like that. And it's a lot of writing, because the inspection sheets sometimes are like 3 pages long, and you have to be detailed, because if there is any problem, these can be used in a court of law, and you need to be thorough and accurate with your descriptions. So it did take a long time, and then you need to have nice writing. Like my husband would never be able to cut it. He has terrible writing. I am slightly better than him.
Well, Dr. Arnold, thank you for an engaging activity that's relevant to our case and to our daily lives. So another thank you from all of us to you, and sincere appreciation. We are going to head to our breakout rooms for a little reflection, how this ties in to your cases, and then finish up your cases. Really, until noon, the next 45 minutes is a chance for you all to work on your presentations, record them if you want ahead of time. If you feel like that's wrapped up and in a good place for tomorrow amongst your group, come on back. We will be here till 12:30 to talk about any of your other personal products, resumes, cover letters, You've had feedback on those. We're already taking a look at your pathways from last night, and how those products fit into your pathways, just to help you get as much as you can out of this week. So thank you all for your participation.